I ended a wanted pregnancy at 16 weeks, and this is my unabridged TFMR story. About a year ago, I walked into my OB's office, my toddler in tow, and went to my first ultrasound, 8-9 weeks. Everything looked great, in the right place, measuring correctly. And as I was packing up to leave, my doctor said, hey, by the way, given the recent fall of Roe and the Dobbs decision, that has changed this state's abortion care. So if you were to get an abortion, you have until this amount of time. Okay, great. Thanks for letting me know. In my head, I'm like, that doesn't sound like a me problem, and walked on out the door. A couple weeks later, I came back for my NIPT. And then a couple weeks after that, I wake up to a couple of missed calls from my doctor. I remember thinking, gosh, that's so odd that I have 2 voicemails from my OB. How often do OBs call you, with results? I called my mom, kind of frantic, hey, this is happening. Isn't this so strange? This is bad news. Some doctors like to give results, good or bad, just call back, wait. So we finally stopped playing phone tag, and I remember the fact that we didn't even get through pleasantries, and he just sort of drops, your NIPT results came back high for trisomy 21. I remember trying to hold back tears, and he explained that at that point in my pregnancy, I should get a CVS, and call MFM. They're the ones who do all of that. I already had an appointment scheduled for my NT ultrasound, and so I called the MFM. They got me in. I remember sitting down with the MFM and her pulling out a binder of statistics, and telling me a story about how there was a woman who was the 5% that the Natera NIPT results were wrong. So she had the utmost hope for us. We did the NT. At that point, it was, I think, 2.9. And, the normal range is 1 to 3 millimeters. So we were a hair away from being abnormal. We did the CVS. The CVS was, I can't tell you how traumatic and awful it was, but it was traumatic and awful. And, she told me not to think about it and to just hope for the best, not think about it. We had a international trip planned. We were going to Germany and Switzerland, and she said, you can go. So we found ourselves on the plane 2 days later, headed to Germany. The anticipation for the results was brutal. It took about 10 days to get those results back. I was a ghost. I was a shell of a human. I couldn't not think about it. Doc, thanks for that. And I'll never forget, we were walking in Zurich. It was actually a couple days before Christmas. The lights were twinkling. Actually, that day, it was the most beautiful day. Just little flurries. It was so picturesque and so beautiful. And I get the call. My husband and I are kind of huddled together listening. Do you have a minute? And immediately my heart drops, and she just, I don't even know what she said, but essentially 99.9% sure that this was a trisomy 21 pregnancy. She kind of explained different things. This was just a stroke of really, really bad luck. And we're in the middle of this beautiful street that's just buzzing with activity, and I just fell into my husband. I remember my knees buckling and just weeping. My husband's a doctor, and doctors have doctor friends, and one call to this person and another call to another person, and I found myself actually the next day getting an early anatomy scan by the head of a teaching hospital that was the head of the OB department. I was very, very, very lucky. And so we went in there, and we saw really troubling things. So the NT went from like that 2.9 to 9 millimeters. We were 15 weeks at that point. There was pulling in the front and the back of the brain. There was a cardiac defect, but most significant was a GI issue, a very, 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 very significant GI issue. He told me that outside of the trisomy 21 diagnosis, the heart defect, what we're seeing, the GI issue was so severe that he said it warranted a very serious conversation about termination. A lot of those things are consistent with a trisomy 21 diagnosis. It was just a lot of the things that are consistent with a trisomy 21 diagnosis. This wasn't a pregnancy that, had I not done the NIPT results, would have just kind of, gotten by and would have been surprised by, a Down syndrome baby. This was a sick pregnancy, lots of markers, lots of issues. I spent the next week, the next day, 2 days, trying to find a clinic that would, I could get a D&E. And I ended up having to go out of my home state, and had to go somewhere else. The D&E that day was the worst day of my life. It was a necessary thing for my family, and it was the worst thing.